I believe the spirit of the American dream is living, alive and well, strong, something that we can capitalize on because we've done it time and time again. America has never truly been defeated, and we're not going to stop now. There is so much that our people have to offer. When we link hands and fight for our freedom, fight for the liberty, those things etched in stone in our Constitution, we can win again. Then we'll not only prosper, we'll have our American dream back again.
Americans are overwhelmingly and incredibly kind and generous people. And that's not just my opinion. We can actually prove that with statistics. For example, if you look at charitable giving, Americans are far more generous with charitable giving than are other advanced wealthy nations in the world, to a huge degree. America has always subscribed to a Judeo-Christian ethos. Even people who are not themselves faithful Jews or Christians have largely subscribed to that ethos of compassion for other people. And that goodness, that kindness has formed the American character over centuries and continues to this day. And it's one of the foundational reasons why this aggressively leftist, secular humanist ideology of the Democrat Party of the 2020s, which is an increasingly radicalized leftist party, is so out of step.
I was born in El Salvador during the Black years. I was born literally during a battle. And luckily my father, he was able to get us visas to come here legally to the United States. We went back in 1989 to visit family. And I was a little bit older, and I remember witnessing the war, seeing just shootouts come out of nowhere. It's crazy the way I think and I look. It takes me back to when I was walking down the street, and my father would tell me, "Oh, look at this drunk, look at that drunk," because there was people laying all over the floor, and he would just say they're drunk. Now that I'm older, I know they were dead. And we fought against the communists. I always connect that to what's going on in America today. We've experienced communism. Look at Cuba, look at other places, Venezuela. People are leaving there because of their socialist, communist type of mentality, type of government that they have. And this is going to destroy America. It's already happening.
I saw Tim Walz say that one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. And anybody who believes that, you have to question just how extreme they'll go with their personal socialist views and how that will implement the policies that they might draft or that they might influence. Theory, it sounds good. It sounds great that everybody's gonna earn money and everybody's gonna pay into this pot. But when you go to places like Cuba and you see what socialism looks like in real time, in which people are lined up for miles to get gas, in which people are, it's like Black Friday in America, but it's every day for them when they're getting groceries, because that's just how scarce resources are. You guys saw empty grocery shelves during COVID, but you don't know what that's like for that to be an everyday thing for you because of price control. I think it's pretty obvious that Kamala Harris would be pushing this type of agenda.
I would tell you this, that, and I think this is very important regarding Kamala Harris and who she really is. Her closest ally in Washington, D.C. by far is Bernie Sanders. He, of course, is senator from Vermont. He is a self-described socialist. In 2019, the last year that Kamala Harris was in the Senate before she became Vice President of the United States, GovTrack rated her, through its statistical analysis of legislation in the Senate, rated her as the #1 most leftist, most liberal senator in the entire United States Senate. Bernie Sanders was #2. He took the silver medal in that dubious competition. Kamala Harris took the gold, but she was aggressively against fracking. She now claims to be pro-fracking. So getting back to Bernie Sanders, he was asked about these flip-flops by NBC. And he was asked quite properly if she is abandoning her progressive ideals that she formerly shared with Bernie Sanders. And it was very telling, Sanders, in a moment of honesty, and perhaps he regrets saying this, he told NBC, no, she has not abandoned those views. She's just being, and this was his quote, pragmatic in order to win the election.
The left likes to talk about how Donald Trump is the biggest threat to democracy, but at the same time, they were involved in what Trump and Republicans identify as a coup. I think that Republicans rightly look at this and say, you know, the real threat to democracy is the elite single-handedly crowning somebody else as his successor. Like, well, we're going to leave him in the presidency, but we're going to take his vice president and make her the nominee, installing her, rather than having voters make their decision of who should be their presidential nominee. They made it very clear that if he continued to run, they would publicly call for him to step down. I think that President Joe Biden saw this as a chance to get back at the people who forced him out of office. You forced me out of office, I'm going to choose and endorse Kamala Harris.
There was no primary. They did not have to step onto a debate stage. They did not have to earn their right to have their name on that ticket. And Kamala Harris got in front of the American public and told them every day that Joe Biden was competent, Joe Biden was quick, sharp, Joe Biden was on his toes. He was that guy. And it's just like, you knew for a fact that that wasn't happening. You knew he was on his way out. And so the fact that she was able to get up and lie to everybody and say Joe Biden is doing fine, all the way up until they knew a primary wasn't possible. Then they sent him out on the debate stage knowing that he wasn't ready. And then as soon as he failed, it took about, a week? And next thing you know, he announces over Twitter. He doesn't even have the decency to call a press conference. He announced over Twitter that he was leaving the race and that he was not going to be seeking his reelection. And then they just swooped right in and said, hey, delegates, do you guys like Kamala Harris? And what's crazy is within that 3-day period, you had people like Senator AOC. Basically, she said that Kamala Harris did not have the support of the Democratic higher-ups. Then 2 days later, I kid you not, 2 days later, you have the same Senator AOC calling for the support of Kamala Harris, saying that, we need to believe in her. She's the one. And it just really makes you think, okay, what in the world changed within 48 hours to where now you're urging all the delegates to cast a ballot for Kamala Harris so that she may be the Democratic nominee? And so the fact that they were able to literally push that man out and just prop that girl right in and nobody's asking any questions about it only lets them know that they can literally get away with anything.
Hi, my name's John Rourke. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. Been all over the world, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and that was one of the best experiences that I had in my life. It really set me up for my future. And with my business, is employing veterans, is bringing veterans on, and trying to get a lot of veterans back in the workforce and back volunteering. And something I think a lot of veterans lack is that feeling of being a part of something. And a lot of veterans are always searching for that camaraderie, that feeling of having a bigger purpose. And these cleanups and these things, these volunteer missions that I do, when we include veterans, a lot of the feedback I get is, thank you for including me, man. You got my blood pumping again. I felt like I was part of a mission, you know what I mean? I felt like I was back, contributing to America again. It's like going to the border, going to East Palestine, Ohio after the train derailment. So when the toxic train derailment happened, everybody, it seems like in the world knew what happened there. It's tragic what happened to that town of East Palestine, Ohio. So I really felt like I needed to do something for the people there, who, I felt like, to be honest, we're getting screwed. When you're talking about illegal aliens staying in 4-star hotels in New York City and people in East Palestine, tax-paying, hardworking Americans, some of them veterans, not able to get hotel rooms or to get out of East Palestine for a week or something, maybe a VRBO somewhere where they're not breathing in all the air and the toxicity and everything that goes along with that. They had an incredibly hard time making that happen. A lot of them just stayed in their houses because there was nowhere to go for them. So I reached out to the Trump campaign, and I own a moving company, Blue Line Moving. President Trump was gracious enough to donate 16 pallets of water, and we brought all that water up from South Florida and from Oklahoma and delivered it to East Palestine for the people with President Trump. And while I was there, after the water got delivered, and you see him in the McDonald's passing out food to first responders, and people on the streets of East Palestine chanting USA, USA, like a town had hope again. It was almost like they forgot that a toxic train had just derailed there, and then the government blew it up. It seemed like they forgot about that because President Trump was there, and that's what mattered. And they just felt like part of USA. At the end, after the water was delivered, President Trump had his remarks inside the volunteer fire station there in East Palestine. He thanked me on national TV, and it was something else, man.
And I want to thank those of you that helped John Rourke, who's fantastic, Blue Line Moving. Is John here? Hello, John. Good job. Got a lot of trucks coming up with water, right? That's true. You're a fantastic guy. Friend of my son, Don, who's also here. Where's Don? Good job. Did you get him to do that? I think so, huh? He does it on his own. Yeah, he does. He's fantastic. He helps.
President Trump showed up because that's what a leader does. When there's a time in a country's history when they need a leader shows up. They need to know someone from the government cared, and no one from the current administration showed up until President Trump showed up, and then they sent Pete Buttigieg, who kind of just walked around East Palestine with a pair of boots on that have never seen dirt and a reflective vest, pointing and, you know, acting like he knows what he's talking about, which he obviously does not. President Biden showed up a year later, and he brought nothing with him. He brought no solutions with him, and he brought nothing for the people of East Palestine except for, here I am. And it's unfortunate because he's about, I don't know, a 2-hour helicopter ride from Washington, D.C., and he says, oh, I was trying to get to East Palestine. I couldn't get there because I had all these trips around the world. He had all of these things to do for other countries, just not our country. People paint Donald Trump as Hitler. They said it on mainstream media. You know, I know from the family, I've been around the family a lot. His kids are all wonderful people. Like, the most important job you have in your life is to be a father, right? If you have kids, that's your number one job. When you juxtapose Biden's kids and Trump's kids, it's not even a comparison.
When people compare President Trump to Hitler, they're going to the lowest common denominator. Yet we forget that when he was president for 4 years, there were no concentration camps. There was no mass genocide. In fact, there was prosperity. President Trump is not Hitler. In fact, he is the most pro-Israel president that we've ever had in this country. You're insulting the Jewish race and the Jewish religion to compare President Trump to Adolf Hitler. Joe Biden once said, "You ain't black if you don't vote Democrat." Well, President Trump might echo those sentiments to say, if you're Jewish, you should never vote against Israel as your homeland by voting Democrat.
Trump showed up to Chick-fil-A, and regardless of how people want to take that, because it was a chicken restaurant, I've never heard anybody call Chick-fil-A a chicken restaurant until after that happened. But, you know, the fact that I was like, oh, hey, like, I came here to meet you, and I brought all my friends here to meet you as well. The media will have you believing that black people hate Trump, or that Trump can't step foot on an HBCU campus or near an HBCU, or Trump can't go to the hood because people don't like him. Everybody in there was excited to see him. So I just hated the fact that people try to tout him as a racist. You keep hearing all these stories from Mike Tyson where Donald Trump was the only person who supported him. You guys don't hear the stories about how when Jesse Jackson ran for president both times, it was Donald Trump who funded both of his campaigns. Nobody is reminding people that when Jennifer Hudson's family was murdered, it was Donald Trump who offered them asylum in his hotel and let them stay there for free. People aren't talking about that. If Trump was truly a racist, these things would not have happened. If Trump was truly a racist, he wouldn't have a picture with every major black celebrity, with every major black influencer prior to him running for president. Al Sharpton, Oprah Winfrey, everybody and their mother loved Donald Trump. Everybody wanted to be like Donald Trump. You go and listen to rap music prior to 2010 and Donald Trump is mentioned in everybody's album. Why? Because people looked up to them. You know, everybody wanted to be on The Apprentice. Like, it's not like Donald Trump is new to the black community. So the fact that people act like, I don't even know where the narrative of racism came from. I understand, I guess, their talking points or whatever, but when you look at Trump overall and you look at your experience, your personal experience with Trump growing up, you never knew Trump to be a bad person until like 2012. I don't think, one, that a racist person would let me speak at their rally. I don't think a racist person would invite me to their home. And then going back to speaking at the rally, not only did I speak, but he called me back up on stage during his speech. He shared the stage with me. That's not something a racist would ever do. And then additionally, he let me snatch that mic right back and tell folks to tune into my podcast. That's not something a racist person would do. And then he got back on the mic and said, I love this girl. I'm going to do whatever I can to help her. That's not something a racist would do. So when it comes to my personal experience, nobody could ever sell me on that. I wish more people could hear my story and understand that this isn't some special thing. I'm not just some paid plant going around trying to convince people they need to vote for Trump because I want to destroy the black community. Like, none of these things are true.
I just want to tell you, you are an unbelievable person with a great personality. You lit up the whole room. You lit up the whole room. I said, weeks later, I'd go, who is that person that was so incredible?
That man had no obligation to even pay attention to me or even acknowledge me. He's used to ignoring the media all the time. So when I said, hey, Trump, he did not have to acknowledge me because everybody was talking to him.
This one is so smart, so sharp. She grabbed me. She gave me a kiss. I said, I think I'm never going back home to the First Lady.
I think it's unfair that they bring up Trump's past, yet we are supposed to overlook Kamala's.
Why don't we ask Mrs. Willie Brown if Kamala Harris cares about black families? I wonder if Mrs. Willie Brown, a black woman, is also with her.
You know, a lot of people want to argue about us having the first black vice president. If you want to go just by melanin content, sure, I'll give you that. But Black America, the descendants of slaves, Kamala doesn't have that story. It's an insult to me. My family came here from Gabon on a slave ship. Her family owned slaves. Yes, her father's Jamaican, but they were part of the slave trade on the master side. I don't consider Kamala Harris a Black American. She might be African American of African descent, but she's not a Black American. She doesn't have my story of American poverty. She doesn't have my story of being the descendant of a slave. If you really want to talk about Kamala Harris's foundation, how she came to be, it's under the Marxist father that raised her. It's under the laissez-faire Canadian upbringing that she had. She has truly manipulated her story and the melanin in her skin to take advantage of Black voters and to take advantage of the American people.
Kamala Harris was a young 29-year-old Alameda County prosecutor, and if she hadn't met Willie Brown, she probably wouldn't be vice president today. When she met Willie Brown, he was running for mayor of San Francisco, and he at the age of 60, he had already been sort of the most powerful state legislature in California history. He has sort of this playboy persona. I think part of the reason he decided to date Harris is he needed to show and demonstrate to voters. His campaign, people would say the same thing, that this is valuable, that he's being seen on camera with a black woman, knowing that, that the purpose, that he can hold sort of a stable relationship with a young professional instead of, traveling around with a different girl on his arm every week. The two of them really spent that year, Brown teaching her all about the ins and outs of politics and opening all the doors to all the wealthiest fundraisers and meeting the most powerful people in the California San Francisco machine. At the same time, Harris is also making Willie Brown look good. People were already talking about the possibility that Kamala Harris could be the new First Lady of San Francisco if Willie Brown won. Well, Willie Brown did win, and she was right there on election night. She put a big baseball cap with gold letters that read "Da Mayor," and Kamala Harris arrived at that victory party and put the hat on Willie Brown and, essentially crowning him as a political success. He was finally going to be the mayor of San Francisco. But when it came to the inauguration, Willie Brown had broken off that relationship. And who was the woman holding the Bible when Willie Brown was ready to take the oath of office? It was his estranged wife, Blanche, instead of Kamala Harris. Joe Biden really wanted a buddy vice president. He wanted to be he wanted a vice president that was like he was with Obama. But as soon as they got into office, Kamala Harris made it very clear, I'm not here to be your buddy, and I'm not here to take the difficult issues off your plate, and I'm not here to defend you. I am here to protect my political brand and get myself in position to become the next president of the United States.
Well, greetings to you great leaders. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Obviously this is Pride Month, but this is a conversation that should happen every day of the week, all year round. And it is a conversation we will continue to have every day of the week, all year round. So I want to thank you and welcome you for being here. My pronouns are she and her.
Kamala Harris is not for women's rights. First of all, she doesn't set the right example for women, the way that she got into power. Everybody knows her affairs and the things that she's done doesn't represent a way that a mother or a wife should really act. it's contrast. You can actually see what is it that they're really pushing. What is their agenda? What is their narrative?
I think that if people do things that aren't necessarily morally agreeable with the person that they are today, if they are a changed person, they're telling you that they're a changed person, they've shown that they're a changed person, in the same way that we're expected to give Kamala Harris grace, then the same grace should be afforded to Trump. 9 out of 10 of the allegations I hear happened before I was even born.
When Megan Thee Stallion came to Atlanta to twerk for Black voters, it's not something that Kamala condemned. In fact, she celebrated. I know many Black voters who were appalled to think that this is the only way to get a Black vote. This minstrel show of the Democratic Party, it's gotta stop. It's insulting, it's demeaning.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
If you were to ask me if Kamala Harris has changed or progressed from her original introduction into American politics, much like Donald Trump has, I'm going to say no, because the old Donald Trump is not the Donald Trump we see anymore. But Kamala, she stayed the same. She's still a progressive liberal who wants to destroy our country. The promises that she's making for the LGBT community, for those who want transgender assignment surgery behind bars, for those that are manipulating and mutilating young Americans, taxpayer elective sex change surgeries for people behind bars, for murderers? Is that what America really wants?
During 2020, when the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities in Minnesota, were burned to the ground, when a United States police station was literally overtaken and burned to the ground with tremendous damage to people and property in the state of Minnesota, what did Kamala Harris do? She solicited funds for the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Her tweet is still up. You can look for it yourself. She solicited money for the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which was a bail fund to bail out the very perpetrators who committed the egregious acts of violence against the people and property of Minnesota, including one man, a perpetrator who was accused of attempted murder of the police. The Minnesota Freedom Fund helped spring him from jail so that he could be free while he awaited his trial for assaulting and trying to murder policemen in the Twin Cities, paid for by money that was raised by Kamala Harris.
I'm seriously concerned for the future of my children in this nation. When we actually have Americans and people in power convincing the public that men can give birth, that men can breastfeed, that men can menstruate. There are American citizens that believe all three of those things to be true. If they can blur those lines, anything is possible. It's literally has me worried for the future of this country, for my family, for my kids, for my potential grandkids, that if we can't even determine who's a man and who's a woman, where the hell are we going next?
The title of border czar was sort of created by the media to describe Kamala Harris's duties.
There's about 5 other major things she's handling, but I've asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help us. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
Kamala Harris famously did not want that job. She insisted that she was only in charge of root causes, but at the same time, the White House was sending her around to interviews to Guatemala, not to talk about not only these root causes, but to talk about the administration's efforts on immigration. That's why when she was in Guatemala, she looked into the camera at a press conference and told migrants, "Do not come. I believe that if you come, you will be turned away." And famously, they didn't listen to her. They only came across in even greater numbers because they didn't take Kamala Harris seriously. They would not enforce the border, and then everyone was welcome. President Biden made that very clear on day one of his administration. When he ended President Trump's policies on the border, it was very clear that he wanted to let more people in, illegally or legally. And that's why certainly Kamala Harris today justly avoids the title of voter czar. And it's understandable because it was a complete disaster. The Biden administration knew it was a disaster. That's why they tried to shuffle it on Harris. And Harris knew absolutely that they were trying to pin something very politically unpopular on her when she's trying to maintain the future of her political career, even as vice president, for a president that was clearly struggling on this issue.
Under the Harris administrations, hundreds of thousands of children who have come through our southern border are unaccounted for. They're missing. We're talking about a humanitarian crisis. We don't know if these children are with families. We don't know if they're held up in someone's basement. We have no idea because of the rampant, unenforced immigration that is illegally coming through our southern border. For the children, we must do something.
Well, I believe that far and away the biggest threat to our country right now is the fact that the Biden administration has thrown open our borders. This has produced not only a terror threat, and it's not only introduced felons into our society. It's designed to erase, to delete, to cancel American identity, right? If everyone from anywhere is the same, what makes Americans different? What makes Americans special?
When I left from Texas visiting the border, I saw myself the folders that they give the illegal immigrants with tickets inside of them that they can go anywhere they want in America. They stay in the airports. They're always traveling. They get free meals, free medical. In New York and in New Jersey, there's places where they take people out, American citizens, out of hotels, out of where they're staying and living, so they can put illegal immigrants in there. Even veterans literally put them out in the street so they can put illegal immigrants here that have done nothing for this nation.
2,000 migrants were moved from Floyd Bennett Field to James Madison High School, forcing those students there to learn remotely.
I always find it interesting to speculate if the tables were turned. When Black Americans were released from slavery, they had no basis to survive in the education system as it was set up. Yet today we have millions of illegal aliens entering our public school system, and we accommodate them at the cost of American-born citizens. We have restructured public education in order to make sure that they are successful, yet we haven't considered their culture, the impact of them being in our public schools, and what it really takes to educate the whole child. We are throwing money at a problem without even understanding the problem because it has overwhelmed the system. I'm in the classroom every day, and I see kids who have come to this country, have no language skills, and yet they are expected to surpass the standards in a given year or two. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the other kids who are trying to learn in that environment. Would we have done the same for the children of slaves? Well, obviously, we didn't. But ultimately, what we're doing is hurting children across the board. Those who have just come to this country and those who have lived in this country for generations. What we can't do is bring new math or new language arts or new anything into a classroom and expect children to be able to get a job when they graduate.
Americans who pay taxes are being compelled to pay for people who broke our laws to get here. Say, sorry, I don't owe you anything. I'm sorry. I have, charity starts at home. Taking care of your family, taking care of your community, taking care of your country, right? Yeah, I mean, the world's a big place.
So I've gotten confronted many times, actually, from church members saying, well, if you're a Christian, how come you're not welcoming the illegal immigrants that are coming across?
So this is what people are doing. They're preying on the decency of Americans to blackmail them, to take advantage of them. This is preying on the sensibilities of decent Americans that we're going to, protect these people who are asylums, who are fleeing. And look, we have to admit, of course, most people are fleeing from much worse political situations because that's what the world is. That's why the United States is supposed to exist, right? The United States is supposed to be they're supposed to respect our God-given rights. That's the purpose of the Bill of Rights, that this is enshrined. But the idea that somehow Americans have to pay for the rest of the world or for anyone else who can get on a pickup truck, a train, or a plane to get here. No, this is preposterous. But the leadership, again, the leadership of this country, especially in the Democratic Party, but there are Republicans too, who are preying on the decency of Americans, is it's not shocking. What's shocking is that there are not more people in our political apparatus who have stood up to them, especially in the Republicans, who have not called them out for this, who have done nothing to protect, again, not only the territorial integrity of the United States, but also the identity of our country, which is not Babel, right? The idea is not that anyone can become an American from anywhere in the world, right? That's Babel, right? This was a curse.
What's happening at our southern border is just unconscionable. We've seen an increase of 200% for the number of illegals that are coming through our southern border in a given month. It increased under one president, and it has multiplied under another. Yet we have children that not only are unaccounted for, but they're showing up in emergency rooms, they're showing up in our schools, they're showing up in places where we can't accommodate them. The American taxpayer is not prepared to foot the bill for the rest of the world. We've got to do something, and it's as simple as enforcing the laws we already have in place. Our founding documents say protection against terrorists, domestic and foreign. That's what we're dealing with right now. We don't need any new laws to close our border. It's already etched in our legal system.
You don't want to start off going to a new nation as a criminal. You don't want to start off in America breaking the law. It is a crime. It is a federal crime to come into America illegally. They're coming across, they're jumping in the front line of other people that paid many, many thousands of dollars to wait for their visa or their green card that went through the process. If you look in the Bible, there's always law and order. God talks about law and order. They're breaking the law. That's why. That's number one. And then number two is all the things that are happening to them when they cross the border. The rapes, the murders, the human trafficking. God doesn't want that. If anything, God wants that to stop. I've seen IDs. I've seen diapers and like kids clothes and condoms. What we got?
Children's clothing, little baby. This is a onesie, which is, what else is in here? Look at this, guys, man. These poor freaking children. Oh, that's great. There you go. An open condom wrapper with children's clothes there. Just a diaper, newborn diaper, phone. Guys, what the fuck is a condom wrapper and little children's clothes doing next to each other? Like, how do those two things come together? Unfortunately, I think that I have the answer to that question, and it makes me sick to my fucking stomach, man. I mean, this shit has got to end at this border. We cannot have this. Look at this. An open condom wrapper and a little children's onesie. I mean, Glenn, this shit pisses me off, man. We have a lot of sick people coming into this country. Sure, there are people that are here to work hard and do the right thing. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are doing this disgusting shit. Okay? It has to end. You see all these people across? All these people? These are not our friends. These people do not have the best interests of the United States in their hearts. Yesterday, they're throwing trash into the water, telling us, clean up your trash. Clean up my trash. This is mine here, throwing it into the Rio Grande. Coming to a neighborhood near you. Makes me sick.
There's people that are just trying to cross the Rio Grande and they drowned with their children. I mean, the atrocities. I've spoken to many churches and I tell them the devil is alive and he's alive at the border. There's an actual ongoing war on the border. This is why we're anti-illegal immigration. We don't hate them, we hate what's going on with them. We hate how the cartels are taking advantage of them. We hate all the deaths, all the rapes that are going on. We want to put a stop to it. The Democrats are encouraging people to come over here illegally for votes.
I mean, I feel sorry for the people too. I understand why they're coming. If I were them, I would come too. I'm not sitting here telling you I have a solution to the problem. What I'm telling you though is that we have laws and we just need to follow our laws. Like, I'm sorry that it's bad in Venezuela. I really am. It's not fair to the people that did it legally. The people that came here, spent the money, spent the time, learned the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, learned about what it takes to be an American, what that's about, the sacrifice, everything that's gone into making this country. All of that is skipped when you cross the Rio Grande. So I understand. I have helped. I've pulled people out of the Rio Grande to save their life. It's not like I don't feel for these people. If I didn't feel for them, I would have pushed them back in. So I was an Army recruiter. I recruited for the United States Army in high schools. I can't tell you how many illegal aliens I've come in contact with that wanted to join the Army. They fit the bill. They want to join, they want to serve, they're healthy, they're young, they're passing high school, but they're an illegal alien. Do I feel bad for the kid? Of course, he's an Americanized illegal alien at this point, right? He doesn't know any better. He came here as a kid. Like, he's in high school now. He's looking to join the Army. But the point is like, that can't just continue to happen. Otherwise, the whole world will live here. And a lot of the people that are coming here are good people. They are. There's no doubt about that. I've rescued dogs in Colony Ridge, Texas, with illegal aliens that lived here and were living in Colony Ridge, but go out every night and rescue abandoned dogs on the streets of Colony Ridge. They're illegals. I was rescuing dogs with them. The woman that I did it with, amazing, amazing person, should be here, wants to be here, is giving back. But unfortunately, she's here illegally. So, you got to do it the right way. It breaks my heart. She's a great person, but she broke the law coming here. We're a nation of laws. We have to follow the law.
We did see the Biden-Harris administration do their best at repealing any and everything that Trump did. Undoing the Remain in Mexico, undoing the travel ban, a rise in illegal immigration, and then for whatever reason, the Biden-Harris administration decided to reward these illegals because it's like, hey, if you make it over here, we got some gifts for you. And so they basically incentivize people to jump over the wall. And what's crazy is now they're campaigning on the same ideals that Trump has, because now all of a sudden a strong border is important to them. Now all of a sudden no tax on tips is a reality for some people. And these are all policies that were already presented by President Trump, but were knocked down because for whatever reason they seemed unrealistic or not true or too harsh or racially charged. Yet now Kamala Harris is literally posting campaign ads with the border wall that Trump built in it. And she's acting like this is her thing and we're going to finish the border and we're going to hire all these new agents and we're going to secure the wall like never before. And it's like Trump was literally telling you guys to do that 8 years ago.
To date, we've cleaned up over 125,000 pounds of trash, about 100,000 pounds of that coming from the southern border. They cross the water and they're soaking wet. So they bring a garbage bag with dry clothes, and when they cross the water, they take their wet clothes off, they put their dry clothes on, they throw the garbage bag and obviously the wet clothes on the ground, and then they're looking for a Border Patrol agent to turn themselves in so they can be processed, and then the country will fly them, wherever they need to go in the country to wherever they want. So I've seen it firsthand. I've done 4 cleanups, like I've said, 125,000 pounds of trash. I've never had a single Democrat help me in any one of these cleanups. No one, none of them. They all care about the environment. They claim they care about the environment, but they buy oil from Venezuela, who's using equipment from the 70s. Do you think the people of Venezuela, the government, is looking over environmental stuff while they're drilling for oil in Venezuela? Absolutely not. It's probably the dirtiest oil you can buy, and we buy it all up and refuse to do it in our country where we're regulated to the hilt, and we are going to get the cleanest oil possible in the cleanest way possible, and yet we say no to that, and we say yes to dirty oil that was extracted in a dirtier way, and we buy it up. It's all fake. It's all, the earth is going to end, but then we're still buying oil from other countries. the Earth is going to end because of pollution, because of CO2 emissions, yet we don't make anything in this country. We buy everything from China, and China puts it on giant cargo ships that are run on diesel, and they send them across the ocean all day, every day by the hundreds, and then we send them back to China completely empty, all burning diesel the whole way. Like, why not just make it here and not send ships across the world burning diesel the whole way? It's a farce. Okay, these people don't care. They care about money and power. By drilling oil and extracting oil and refining it in this country, we put Americans to work. Good paying jobs in places like Pennsylvania, in places like Alaska, places where there are thousands of people that could be making $100,000 a year or more, living a great life, but yet the current administration, the Harris-Biden administration, chooses to not do that. They choose to let the pipeline go through from Russia to Germany, the Nord Stream, but kills the pipeline in the United States.
If the Keystone Pipeline had remained open, it would have employed nearly 60,000 Americans. My brother was working on the Keystone Pipeline when it was shut down by President Biden. That is nearly $10 billion in revenue that America has lost out on.
A huge driver of why Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the leftists and the establishment in Washington, D.C. continue to push this aggressive so-called Green New Deal is because their business interests are very much aligned with these ostensible environmental goals. In other words, they are selling the package as supposedly an environmental package, but the reality is it's largely a corporate giveaway to allied companies and to other countries, particularly China. When it comes to EVs, for example, the batteries are overwhelmingly made in China. So rather than relying on American domestic energy to power our vehicles, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want you to rely on batteries that are made in China. So this Green New Deal scam is yet another example of how the left uses phrases and excuses to hide its actual agenda. And in this case, the actual agenda of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is largely to reward the Chinese instead of Americans. Real wages, which is what really matters to most Americans, that's pay adjusted for inflation. Real wages have crashed under the leadership, the mismanagement of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. That is just simply a reality. Real wages are down 3.9% since Kamala Harris became vice president. That's according to the House Ways and Means Committee. Again, that's your income adjusted for the costs of the goods and services you need to live your life. The CPI, which I think understates inflation, the Consumer Price Index, that even acknowledges that groceries, for example, have inflated by 22%. If we look at the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, that by the way works for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that the price tab for that family of four was $675 per month at the beginning of the Harris-Biden administration. It is now $975 per month. But inflation and immigration, the two eyes, they are inextricably linked together, because this flood of people, at least 10 million illegals, possibly more like 20 million illegals, who have poured into this country, this bull rush of illegal migrants into the United States, is incredibly inflationary because these people need to be housed, driving up the cost of housing. We're largely paying for that housing, by the way. So we subsidize their housing, forcing up the price of housing, apartment rents, home purchases for American citizens. They need goods and services once they are in this country. Also inflationary. So the two issues are incredibly linked, and they're putting incredible stress on government budgets, and not just at the national level, but at the local level. I was just in Whitewater, Wisconsin, a town of only 15,000 people. They have 1,000 illegal migrants who have arrived since Harris became vice president, mostly from Nicaragua and Venezuela. 1,000 migrants in a town of only 15,000 people. The police department doesn't have the budget to deal with the added problems that are unfolding in Whitewater, Wisconsin. We see similar stories in Springfield, Ohio, similar stories in Charleroi, Pennsylvania. These are small towns in middle America that have been inundated with migrants.
Inflation just here in Georgia alone is up 21.4%, and this inflation is costing Georgia families an additional $1,060 a month. And then when you look at the war on energy that was declared by the Biden-Harris administration, we're allowing other countries to bully us into paying whatever it is that they want. At the end of the day, putting America first is how you fix the economy. You invest in American companies, you invest in American workers, and then all these American people do is spend their American dollars with other Americans. Therefore, we are decreasing our deficit. And yet when somebody like President Trump goes after these folks and says that, hey, you should be paying your people a fair share, then he's attacked and people are like, well, where are we going to get the money from? We'd get the money from the same magical pal we find all the money for Ukraine from. We'd find the money for all the money when we forgave student loans. We had to find that money from somewhere. So nobody's concerned about where the money's going to come from unless it's Trump. When it comes from anybody else, everybody's like, oh my God, this is such a great idea. Yet we've seen how these great ideas have cost us in the long run. The Democrats alone are taking over the media here in America right now, screaming that we're in a time of joy. Everything is joyous. Everyone feels joy. But I can promise you that when people are going to the gas pump, there is nothing joyous about that experience. When people are checking out at the grocery store, there is nothing joyous about that experience. When people have realized that their mortgage rate has gone up because their interest rate went up, that is not a joyous experience.
So Kamala Harris, along with a lot of assistance from the very corrupt, very complicit corporate media, tries to pretend that her campaign and that their general message is about joy. Well, the exact opposite is true if you actually look at the evidence. But believe it or not, and this didn't get much media attention because I think even the left-leaning media understood that this was embarrassing for the Democrats. There was literally an abortion van. There was an RV giving vasectomies and abortions parked outside of the Democratic National Convention. So that is the exact polar opposite of joy.
This is my new acquaintance, Edwin. Say hello.
My name is Edwin.
Okay, Edwin is from Venezuela. And we're going to take Edwin into the DNC so that he can meet the Democrats who want open borders. He should meet his new friends, hear the speakers, and learn about the Democratic Party. So Edwin, let's head in, shall we? This is Edwin from Venezuela, migrant, invited by the Democratic Party. He'd like to come into the Democratic Convention.
You have to get your credentials. Yep, you have to go to Jackson.
Yep. Wait, you mean he needs credentials and permission to come in?
Yes.
To get past the wall?
Yeah.
It's like a border wall in a way, huh?
Yeah. You have to have ID, credentials.
Okay, to come to the United States?
No.
Not to come to the United States. Okay, but to come to the Democratic Convention.
Here, baby.
Okay. You believe in security. You believe in securing the boundary. Edwin can't come in.
That's all I know.
Hi there. We would like to get some credentials for Edwin. Come on, Edwin. Edwin is from Venezuela. So we tried to get Edwin into the convention. He's a migrant from Venezuela. No organization, just American. And he's a migrant from Venezuela. Wanted to get into the convention. We figured that they would love to have a migrant from Venezuela come in. They said we need credentials, so we're here to get the credentials. Okay. Has anyone filled out an application for that? So you have to. There's a process of an application. I mean, you didn't have that at the border. Okay. I have my own social media, so this is right now. Just to be clear, we have been ejected from the DNC credentialing office because we're not permitted to be here. We don't have permission. We didn't go through the application process. It seems like the United States would use similar rules about crossing the U.S. border. DNC doesn't believe in that, but they do believe in it for their own convention. This is Edwin. He's from Venezuela. He's a migrant. Democratic Party wants an endless stream of migrants into America, so I'd like him to go and meet his political friends, listen to the speeches, and come to the Democratic Convention. Well, you're laughing. He's allowed to come to the United States without identification or permission. Can he come into the DNC?
I don't think the Secret Service is going to go for it.
They're not going to go for it? Well, they went for it at the border.
Well, maybe he can get credentials.
Stop. How can we help you, sir? We'd like to get Edwin in. The Democratic Party invited him into America, Venezuela. We'd like to get Edwin in to meet the Democratic Party. Do you need credentials to go to the United States? We're done. Do you need credentials to go to the United States? So we do need credentials here to get past this heavily armed barrier. Well, Edwin, Kamala Harris has an open border. You're allowed in America. You're not allowed into her party. Oh well, Edwin, we tried. 2 gates, credentials, 0 for 3. That's a strikeout in baseball. See? Today's strikes.
He was denied because he didn't have credentials, because it was carefully guarded, because there was effectively a border wall, meaning there was a lot of fencing, a lot of guns, a lot of security outside of the DNC. They believed in protecting their own celebration. They don't believe in protecting the United States. So Edwin was welcome to simply saunter into the United States. He told me he showed zero ID when he came to America. They simply took his word for it, who he was, how old he was, where he was from. He sauntered into our country. We are paying for him, by the way, to stay at a downtown hotel in downtown Chicago. So he's welcome into America, but not welcome into the DNC. So on both of these issues, in terms of the DNC, the hypocrisy of the DNC regarding migrants and regarding welcoming them into our country, but not into their fiesta, not into their celebration in Chicago, and looking at the reality that there was literally an abortion truck, a mobile abortion unit parked at the Democratic National Convention, we see that gathering was the very opposite of joy. As a matter of fact, it was about inflicting pain, and inflicting pain in an intense way upon regular Americans.
God uses some of his most unlikely messengers to spread his message. And that may be because his usual messengers wouldn't have gone into the same spaces that these unlikely agents would have. So when we look at, stories throughout the Bible in which, God used adulterers, murderers, drunks, prostitutes, all of that to deliver his word, then what's to say that God hasn't put his word on somebody like President Trump's heart and given him a change of heart, and that's why he's doing the work that he is now. Maybe there's a reason why he feels so convicted to expose certain secrets. Maybe there's a reason why he has this conviction to drain the swamp. It must have come from somewhere, and to deny somebody's spiritual awakening is, kind of unfathomable on my part, because I could never tell anybody that their experience with God isn't real. He's your unconventional agent, somebody who you wouldn't expect him to do good work. You wouldn't expect him to care about everybody. But that's actually who he is. So it's like nobody could ever make me hate him. And so the fact that so many people are hell-bent on making the rest of the world hate him, it really makes you wonder, what is it that he has to offer that, certain people don't want out? What is it that he might tell that certain people don't want out? Who might lose their job over some, allegations or some actual, criminal activities that, they've been getting away with for a while? I think more people are afraid of what Trump will do, in a sense that they would be held accountable for their actions, than we are having people afraid of what Trump will do in a sense of, he's going to turn into a dictator or he's going to bankrupt the country, because at the end of the day, he was our president before. And none of those things happened. We didn't even head in that direction.
So in Matthew 13 in the Bible, it talks about the parable about the sower, about the seed falling in the path, the seed falling on the rock, the seed falling on the thorns, and then the seed falling in good soil. Today, America is those four. It's those three, actually. We need the good soil. The sower of the seeds represents Jesus Christ, and the seeds represent the Word of God. The seed that fell on the path, the birds came and took it away. That represents Satan taking away the Word. Now, the seeds that fell on the rock, that represents no growth at all. The seeds that fell on the thorn got choked because America is looking in the wrong direction. And the seeds that fell on good soil, that produced 100-fold. And that's what we need in America, good soil. America gets good soil by going back to God. In God we trust. We need to bring that trust back to God. That's the good soil that's going to help produce and have America grow.
I want to paraphrase Proverbs 28:10. It's talking about willfully leading someone astray. The pit that you dig for someone else, you're the one that's going to fall in. We have to turn our hearts back to righteousness. I'm a believer, and I know God can use the least of these. He did it throughout Scripture. King David was no saint, and neither was any other king in Israel. But God used them for a specific purpose. Who's to say that he's not doing the same thing with a leader like President Trump? I know God puts people in office, in positions of power, but it's time for the American people to partner with God on this.
And we have Pastor Jeffress, too, who's been with me right from the beginning. He made a statement once, I'll never forget. I said, who is this guy who's on television? He said, This guy Trump, he may not know the Bible as well as some of us. In fact, he may not know it that well. But he's a big believer and he's a great leader. And we're going to be very happy with him. And I'll never forget it. I wasn't sure, should I be insulted or not, but I wasn't.
Why are they all out here? It's President's Day.
I can't control you, 'cause I don't